Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spot Real Talk. My name is Tiara,
I'm Tiffany.
and today Ron is out enjoying himself on a much-deserved vacation. So we are wishing Ron all the fun and relaxation that he deserves. But while he's out, Tiffany and I are holding down the fort. So if things look a little different, just roll with it.
Roll with it.
Yes, we are. We're going to try to keep the show rolling without Ron. He is the glue that pieces us all back together, but we're going to try to keep things as normal as possible. But, today we are here to talk about Atlanta. So, Atlanta is back for its final season, and we are talking episode 4 today. It was titled Light-Skinned, that extra ED on the end there, Light-Skinned. So, this episode was a trip. I mean, I think a lot of us can relate to this in one way or another because everybody got some family drama. There's always some shenanigans that predates your existence that the family got going on. Yeah, and unfortunately, Ern got dragged into it this week.
Look, and it don't matter how much money you got or whatever.
Nope.
I mean, a lot of Black families had a lot of dysfunction.
Yes, indeed. And so it's very clear from the outset of this episode that Gloria, Ern's mother, had this plan in the motion since the beginning. She did not want Ern to drive her to church. She insisted on driving them together. And we get introduced to Aunt Jeannie, who is played by Brianna McCall White, who we've had on this show before. So she is also on BMF playing Big Meech's mother, and we got to interview her for that. So if you have not seen that interview, you should check that out as well. She is an incredible actress, and she really gave us a lot of gems about her process and coming into some of her roles. So check that out.
Yeah, but she really had lovely energy.
Yes, yes. And we got to see her this week in action because Aunt Jeannie is something else. It's very clear that Gloria and Aunt Jeannie have this feud going on. And Aunt Jeannie says some things later on in the episode that kind of insinuated some things about the relationship between father and daughter. It's very clear that Papa was a Rolling Stone. He had children all over town, apparently. And so we're kind of I feel like we're just put as the viewers in the middle of this uncomfortable situation. And I can imagine how Ern felt, where it's like, this really don't have nothing to do with me, but here I am trying to fix it.
Well, you know what? You talk about Ern, you know what I felt for? The father. Because all the father wanted to do was have some me time for a few hours. He was like, they in church for 3 hours. He's like, I'm going to go to the mall. It won't be nobody there. And he was just like, because he'd been married to her for 30 years. And to be honest, while Aunt Jeannie was a trip, Ern's mom was a trip. She was super controlling and everything. And Pop just wanted peace of mind. He just wanted to be stroked a little bit because you can tell how, at the kiosk, how the woman was selling them on the hats and everything. He just wanted some peace.
Yes. And he's been dealing with this mess, like you said, for 30 years in this marriage. And this is a cautionary tale to beware of the family that you marry into, because their shenanigans become your shenanigans. You have to deal with it. And he straight up told Ern, when Ern called him from church, and he's like, Dad, what should I do? And he's like, this is my me time. You'll figure it out. He was like, I dealt with it for 30 years. You can deal with it for one day.
Yes.
Yeah, I did feel bad for Dad as well. And like you said, he was clearly feeling neglected. He needed an ego boost. And that woman in the kiosk knew just what to do to upsell him on that hat. And he was really feeling himself too. He thought he was the man in that hat. You can see how he was smiling and looking at himself in the mirror. Like he had a real boost in self-esteem until them kids shot him down.
let me take a picture with you. We gonna go viral off this. I was like, oh, why you playing pops like that?
And they sitting up here talking about he looked like Prince. I'm like, since when is looking like Prince an insult?
Exactly. I
The
think they were talking about the symbol on the side of the hat.
Yeah,
Oh
that was
no.
good. But you can tell that he needed that. I don't blame him for saying, no, this is my time. I need this. Self-care is important. And sometimes you just got to say no.
Yeah, because his mom was overbearing. Like I felt her that, Aunt Jeannie was tripping and all the stuff that she was saying on the phone to all the siblings, she was tripping.
Yes.
But Ern's mom was too. It's like, no, we're not gonna drive your car and we're gonna drive my car. We're gonna do this. Then she was like, then at the end with the bread, you can see Pops had enough. He was like, bring
yeah.
down bread.
I loved how that ended too, because it's kind of like there was no resolve. Like the problems were still there, but it just gave us some insight into how Ern is feeling, because Ern straight up said, I do not want to end up like my family who argue all the time. And I think that is weighing on him, especially since he and Al work so closely together and they are family. Al's mother was likely one of those siblings amongst, Ernest's parents. And we know that Al's mother passed away early on in the show. So, that's something that them working as closely together as they do and having differing opinions, he doesn't want to end up like his family members who argue and bicker all the time. And he doesn't want that to be what him and Al's relationship turns into. So I can see why that's weighing on him.
That's weighing on him, and I'll do you one better. He doesn't want he and Van to become like that. Because remember, Aunt Jeannie said, she was like, you didn't marry her, like you haven't made her an honest woman yet. You have a baby with her and stuff in church and all this other stuff. And that's probably part of the reason why he hasn't gotten married to her yet, or anyone, but especially her, because they have a child, because it's probably like, my poor father is henpecked and this family is and like he might be terrified of marriage.
That part, that could be a deterrent.
Yeah.
See, some of your family marriages going sour or not being all that you expected them to be, that can be a huge turnoff for somebody. So I'm glad we're getting so much insight into Ern's background, because so many things revealed in these last recent episodes that we never knew about. And it explains a lot about how Ern, why he does some of the things that he does and responds the way he does sometimes. And talking back to Ern's mother, Gloria, she was really, it seems like they were kind of taking hits below the belt, Aunt Jeannie and Ern's mother, Gloria, because Gloria was saying, Jeannie is a hoarder and she just trying to be his caretaker so that she could have control. And, there was all of these insinuations. And then on Jeannie's side, she was like, oh, you just want to try to control everything, basically saying he doesn't even remember you. Like that was a blow below the belt. You could see how Ern's mother, Gloria, just hung up the phone because it kind of really upset her. And the rest of the siblings was like, you are just evil. Because that was a horrible thing to say.
It was a horrible thing to say.
Yeah, and so you can tell that like this is not just surface level like bickering. This goes deep. And the fact that he did have all of these children supposedly scattered around, and then his illness with him having dementia, like that's a horrible thing to say. He don't even remember you. And so Aunt Jeannie is really kind of irrational, I think, in her reactions, because she went from they sat through the whole church sermon and everything, went through the church service. And then upon leaving, Ern tries to go off on his own. And she's like, oh, she insinuates that Ern is in on it. I'm like, how did we get here? because I think that Ern was just as surprised as Jeannie was that
He
was
was.
straight up pulled off like that. You know,
And left him with her.
yeah. So, you know, that should have been enough. Like his reaction should have showed her that he wasn't in on it. Like he was shocked. So, I mean, Jeannie is a mess. And then she follows him to the studio. I love that they had Gunna as
And then she kicked everybody out the studio. It's like, y'all get out of here. It's a family emergency. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a mess. And so she then proceeds to call the police to do this wellness check, which if your sister has taken your father, I wouldn't think that would warrant a call to the police because that's her dad. Like, what harm is she really trying to do to her father who has dementia? You know, if anything, she's trying to steal some time with him alone outside of you being there, snooping over her shoulder, trying to, you know, be in the middle of things. So I thought that her calling the police was
extreme.
A bit much.
It was extreme. Mm-hmm. But Dad was funny though, because he was fine first. He was like, "Yeah, I'm here with my daughter." Then when he hit we've been in Egypt for 2 weeks. I hollered.
Yeah. Me too.
Like, okay,
he really is in his right mind. Then he threw that in there. I was like, oh, Lord.
I was like, oh Lord. He just made her case for her.
But the funnier part was that Jeannie seemed to believe that they really were in Egypt. She was like, "See, I told you." And I'm like,
well, she was like, "See, I told you he's not in his right mind." That's what she meant. Because she said he's not going to be coherent. He's not going to remember her, this, that, and the other. And so when he started sounding like he was okay, you know, the police were kind of like, you know, they believed he was okay. And then when they'd been in Egypt 2 weeks, that's when she was like, "Oh, see, I told you." Like,
no, because she said, "See, I told you they are in Egypt." And that's why I was like, did she really believe this? She didn't just say, "See, I told you." She said, "See, I told you they're in Egypt." And that's why I was like, okay.
But I think she meant it to say, like, this is what I'm talking about. He's obviously not in his right mind. That's what I think.
I was questioning whether Jeannie was in her right mind. I'm like, okay,
I don't think she was in her right mind either, though. I think the family is, you know, and most of us have folks, you know, there's always one.
Yeah, indeed. And you know, the title of this episode was Light-Skinned-ed. So she, like you said, she went off on all the siblings, saying that basically they were all against her because she was light-skinned,
right?
You know, and so that alone was laughable, which they laughed her out. Like, okay, now it's not she's not willing to take the accountability and say it's not my behavior. It's nothing that I said that caused all of this commotion to why y'all are, you know, up against me. It's the fact that I'm light skinned. So I'm like, you know, this woman is kind of already.
She was out there. But you know what though? Sometimes it happens in families, and you know, it made me think about Queen Sugar. Like when Queen Sugar first came on, you know, there was kind of like a divide in the family between Charlie and, you know, Ralph Angel and Nova, because they had the same mother, and Charlie's mom was white and stuff. And there was a divide and there was some dysfunction. It took a minute for them to gel and come together as family. But that situation in Atlanta with Jeannie and the siblings, it made me think about that.
That's so true. That's spot on. You know, I think you are right about that. It's clear that there's a lot of dysfunction and it's not going to get resolved anytime soon. I love that Cat Williams popped up, you know, as his uncle again in this episode, and Jeannie seemingly owes him some money too. So, you know, there's that whole thing with the borrowing money with
he hung up the phone so fast.
Yeah.
He was like, "Why have you? You know, you still owe $800." So I'm like,
click. Yes. So I mean, it touched on so many different issues that go on within the family in such a hilarious way. And it's funny, but it's not funny because it really happens.
Yeah. No, listen. First of all, Black people as a whole, we are funny people anyway. And then when you add the family dynamic to it, I mean, hilarious.
Yeah. And I thought it was so funny how after, you know, all this stuff with the siblings and the conversation, and she talked to the police or whatever. She's outside of the studio now with the police telling them to arrest Ern and Al. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, this woman is out of her mind, literally.
Out of her mind.
They escape through this door on the side, and the girl tells them that if they just don't look back, she won't see them. So I was like, that alone was hilarious. So
that was. And the fact that she said it was a way they did it for Bobby Shmurda.
Yep.
When he was trying to evade capture and baby mamas and all that stuff. So that was hilarious too.
Just don't look back. She won't see you. So I mean, this episode was packed with so much in such a little bit of time. And on first review, watching it the first time, I was kind of like, okay, let me try to figure out what this is contributing to the bigger story. Like, what's the point here? And so, I do see that, Al and Ern's relationship is being tested. And so it makes sense that they start delving into their family history and whatnot. So hopefully this leads to some resolve. And we didn't see Darius or Van this episode. So I'm hoping that we can get a Darius and Van like solo episode of them as well. See what's been going on with them behind the scenes during this time. Because we haven't really seen Van since they were lost at Atlantic Station. So I'm trying to figure. I wonder where she's at. With her mental and with Lottie and everything since coming back from Europe. Because they have not touched on that yet.
Good question. I was thinking too that with Ern, despite all the dysfunction in the family, for the most part, well, I think he's probably passive aggressive as we saw, because he's taking out his revenge. But for the most part, his temperament is kind of like this. He's not really, really temperamental and stuff. And it seems like his temperament is a lot like his dad's, because his dad he's released until he blew up at the end. His father found a way to like just exist amongst all this chaos. And what was funny to me was at the end, after he blew up and he suggests like, oh, why don't we look at Redbox? Pop was like, yep, yeah. So he was coherent enough to acknowledge that.
And by the way, in 2022, who is still watching Red Boxes when there are the Netflixes of the world? So I just thought that was funny how they are like kind of showing how old school he is. He still had the Bluetooth in his ear and everything.
What an outfit! The outfit, like, everything. You can tell he was old school. That's why the kids were roasting him and wanting to put him, go live with him and go viral, because they was treating him like he was a dinosaur. And shout out to that actor, because he's another actor from The Wire, and he was the one, like, in those of y'all who watch our Raising Kanan recaps, I just made a reference to The Wire, and in that reference I talked about how Stringer Bell was played by the politician. Well, Ernst Pop in Atlanta was that politician. Yep. And he was known for, he would always say, he would say it so long, about 5 minutes, so everybody would always say it. And that was his claim to fame too.
Yeah, so I mean, it's good to see all of these seasoned actors coming back together too. I mean, it was the perfect dynamic of great acting and comedy and real life scenarios in the Black family structure. So it was perfect. I really liked how they did this, and how, I think I said this last week, they say the unsaid things, without even being so obvious with it too. It's just part of the storyline. Like, they don't have to go out of their way to state the obvious. So it's kind of like all of these things that you can glean and apply and like relate to from your own family experiences. And I seen an interesting comment. I was reading some reviews, and there was an obviously white person who had gone down in the comment section, and he was saying, like, I feel like I can't watch this show. And it's not because I don't like it. It's because I feel like there's kind of like this, I'm not supposed to watch it. Because I guess he doesn't feel in a way that he can relate.
Can't relate.
Yeah, and it's so interesting though, how like it seems like the Black community can watch these shows and immediately relate. Whereas other communities, it might not be as relatable to them, so they may not watch because they don't relate necessarily. And I think they're doing themselves a disservice, because instead of feeling like you can't relate and it doesn't apply to you, you should really be watching with the intent to understand. So I thought that was unfortunate, because I do think this show is so it's done so well that, like I said, it shows you things and it doesn't have to over explain.
Right. Right. It's very witty.
Yes.
It's funny at the same time.
Hilarious. And it just gives you so much insight onto the issues in the Black community that we deal with, and how it bears on us and our mental and our physical and everything, the workplace and relationships and family. It's like, it's done so well. So I really encourage people that feel like they can't relate to still watch. I know this is the final season, but heck, go back and binge watch this, because it's an excellent show, and it's unfortunate that it's coming to an end.
Because think about it, all of our families has shaped our perspectives and our lenses on life, so getting a better understanding of Earn and Paperboy.
Yeah, so my hat's off again to the cast and the crew, the writers, everybody doing a fantastic job. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next week. I'm really hoping, like I said, for a solo Van episode. I really want to know what's going on with her. So yeah, and I want to see what's going to happen with Darius too by the end of the season, because I'm wondering, is he ever going to define his path in life, or is he just going to keep free floating through things like nothing matters? I'm just out here living and experiencing life on the fly.
Right. And do you think that Earn and Van will end up together in the end?
I really hope so, because that question about them getting married and him making an honest woman out of her, I wonder if he doesn't take that into account, especially now that he's faced with this job opportunity on the West Coast that would take him away from his family. Maybe he can appeal to Van and they can get back together and have the happy ending, that we would want. Kind of like how we felt about Issa and Lawrence. Like, we all want the happy ending. So I feel that same way here with Van and Earn. Like, I really want them to have the happy ending. But of course, Atlanta is so real. They're going to give you the real outcome. I don't think they're going to give you the fairy tale ending that maybe everybody wants. It might just be the realistic thing that, it doesn't always work out.
What I found interesting is that when they were going to church, when they got inside, it looked like a church. But when he pulled up to the front, the way the pillars were, it looked like Kingdom Hall.
So I wonder if that has it, but I don't know, because they had the dancers in there with the white.
That's why I said on the inside it was a church. It was a church setting. But when they first pulled up to the building, and I looked at the pillars, the way it looked, and even the attendees, it looks like the Kingdom Hall. And I only say that because I know that was Donald Glover's background. He grew up in that phase. So
yeah, that's an interesting observation there. So
when I saw it, I was like,
yeah, that could be something that he's saying without saying it,
right.
So I love how he does that with the show. You can kind of make your own assumptions and glean what you want from it. So yeah, I really am looking forward to seeing the next episode. And of course, Ron will be back with us by then, hopefully. So you guys that have been missing Ron, he'll be back. Tiffany and I, like I said, we tried to hold down the fort.
We're trying to hold it down. Just keep it pushing.
But Ron's absence is sorely missed.
Yes.
We are not very tech savvy and knowledgeable YouTubes and whatnot. So we're doing our best without him. But yeah, this has been awesome. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please drop down in the comment section and give us your thoughts on this episode and your predictions for how the season will end. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We are on all those platforms at The Spot Real Talk. And also subscribe to this channel. That is super important for us. and make sure you click the notification bell so you get alerted whenever we post. You got anything to add, Tiff?
No, you said it all. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so on that note, we are gonna call it a night. Make sure you're back here next week, same time, same place for episode 5 recap. So have a good night, guys, and thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.